What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back with the next book versus movie, Artemis Fowl. So, I grew up on the Artemis Fowl books. I can remember reading them when I was like 10 or so. These were the books that got my brother hooked on reading. These were an integral part of my childhood. I've waited for 15 years for a movie version. I'm still waiting. When the trailer came out, I told Alex that this was going to be bad. Because from the trailer alone, I knew that this was going to be an absolute dumpster fire of a movie. And I was right, for the record. From the trailer alone, I knew that they had changed several characters significantly, and that in turn was going to change the character arcs significantly. I was trying to give the movie the benefit of the doubt because, yes, they made Julius Root a female, played by Judi Dench, and completely wrecked Holly Short's character arc of being the first female leprechaun officer. You know, maybe they could have made it work. Maybe they could have turned it into a mentorship or something. I don't know. They didn't. When we actually watched the movie, it became very quickly apparent that this movie shared exactly 3 things with the Artemis Fowl book series. Names, Mulch Diggum's tunneling abilities as a dwarf, and 2 scenes from the books. That's it. So since I was complaining virulently about the trailer for, basically ever since I watched it, every time it came up, I talked about what an absolute trash fire this movie was going to be. When we sat down to watch the Artemis Fowl movie, Alex asked me to watch it not just as an adaptation, but just with the question, is this a good movie on its own merits, even if it is not a faithful adaptation? And the answer to that is no. It wasn't even a fun bad. Like, everything that I've heard about the Cats movie sounds horrifically, hilariously bad. You watch it and you're just like, what were they thinking? You watch Artemis Fowl and you're just kind of bored. It's very generic. It's very bland. They're the only 2 scenes that were really any real fun to watch were both taken from the books. When Artemis Fowl talks to his therapist at the boys' school that his mother sticks him in, and when Mulch Diggum's faces down with some goblin gangs in jail. Everything else was just kind of your run-of-the-mill young boy stumbles into fantasy world as he tries to save his dad. The Artemis Fowl movie revolves around a MacGuffin, a plot device that everybody's trying to get their hands on, and I frankly can't even remember what it's called. It's some kind of device that is supposed to help hide the fairy world. The first Artemis Fowl book revolves around a kidnapping and ransom perpetrated by Artemis Fowl. And having a villain protagonist for the first book was amazing. And following his character development through the following 7 books as he goes from a criminal to somebody who's at least an anti-hero was thrilling. In this book, Artemis Fowl does exactly one bad thing, which is kidnap Holly Short, and they get over that very quickly. They have some very civil conversations. They bond over the fact that apparently their dads knew each other.
What?
The conversation that he has with his therapist at the beginning of the movie sets up this great question where the therapist asks him, who in your personal life do you actually respect? Because he rattles off these famous dead people whom he respects, Einstein and Isaac Newton. He's like, yeah, I respect those people. And when the therapist asks Artemis, who do you respect that you know personally? Artemis is unable to answer. In the book, that was very satisfyingly resolved when at the end of the book, after all the adventures they've been through, Artemis can say that he respects Holly Short and he respects Butler. In the movie, it's just never really brought up again. There's no good world building done. There's nothing to make Artemis an interesting and unique protagonist, which is really sad because Ferdia Shaw was a lovely choice for Artemis. And the one scene with his therapist, you get to see the thought that he could actually have been a very lovely, menacing little boy. And he's not given that opportunity. He's allowed to emote, he's allowed to be athletic, which if you've read the books, Artemis is not athletic. Yeah, I'm salty about it. It was a bad adaptation and I waited Anyway, the whole plot with his dad getting kidnapped, which in the book was this fabulous tension where his dad's been declared dead and Artemis refuses to give up hope, against all hope, is simply this little boy trying to rescue his father's storyline. And it just, you know, I may perhaps be a little bit harsher on this movie because I grew up with the books and because I expected I didn't actually expect a stellar storyline from this movie, but I know what it could have been, and I am not thrilled with what I got. So I may be a little bit harsher than necessary. The quality felt cheap. The special effects were just kind of meh. They used 3 sets, it looks like, and they CGI'd everything else. Sitting there like this was a Disney movie that was expected to hit theaters before, global pandemic happened. And it seems very low budget, seems very lackluster. It seems as though the production team just didn't really care. The real tragedy is that from what I've heard, they had filmed scenes that were more faithful to the book. They cast characters who were integral to the books who do not show up in the film at all, who are actually killed off in the film. And you're like, okay. It's kind of amazing. They went as far in the opposite direction from what Artemis Fowl could have been as they possibly could. Disney was scared to make a movie with a villainous 12-year-old as the main character, and they gave us Wonder Bread. Not happy about it at all. I think the biggest thing for me is that Artemis does not do anything that would rate him being known as a criminal genius. The one criminal act that he does, as I mentioned, is that he kidnaps Holly Short, and everything else he relies on his father's research, which is already completed, and just kind of follows the clues and waits out the events of the film. In the book, Artemis is calculating cold, and like when the fairies converge on Fowl Manor, he's got all these booby traps set up, and he's already, he's planned this devastating counteroffense that puts this incredibly technologically advanced society on the defensive because he's planned for everything that they're going to do. He's already read their rule book, he knows exactly what's going to happen, and he forestalls them all quite effectively. At the end of the movie, Artemis has this, Artie, as he goes by in the movie, has this line about how he's a criminal mastermind, and you're sitting there like, no, you're barely a criminal at all, and you're certainly not a mastermind. You've done nothing, you've not masterminded anything. So, in conclusion, the movie was a colossal waste of time, and I have never spent a more painful 90 minutes in my life. Alex has not read the books, and even Alex said this was just painful. It just was not interesting on any level. And 0 out of 10, Disney. Please give us our books back. Please give us our morally gray characters back. And for goodness sake, write us a character who everybody knows deserves to get punched in the face, instead of this poor sad little boy who gets punched and you're kind of like, ooh, that's a little bit harsh, Holly. I don't think he needs that. I think he needs a hug. Because in the books, Artemis doesn't need a hug. He deserves to get punched in the face. Like and subscribe. I'll read something that I can be less salty about next time, because this was not fun. This was not. I suffered, so you don't have to. Don't watch the movie. Just go read the books, because the books were great. See you next time.